What's good, it's Tog. This is going to be my Riftbound TCG competitive tier list. I feel like tier lists are pretty good because it helps the weaker players or like newer players catch themselves up in the meta to understand which decks are good, and I'm also going to talk about why they're good, really try and go in depth about it. And then it's also just good for players that probably have a good understanding of the meta right now to trade ideas, see what the consensus is on which deck is ordered where. Because yeah, I feel like the competitive scene's already moving pretty fast. Just had our first cash tournament, online cash tournament, and that went pretty well. So I'm expecting the comp scene to get pretty competitive soon, but let's just get into it, eh? But before we get into it, I need a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, Codex Journals. So I've known Codex Journals through Flesh and Blood, and I cannot recommend them enough. For newer players, they give you the exact questions you need to ask yourself after every single matchup in order to actually grow and learn from your games. And for the veterans / more experienced players, trying to improve without a review process is borderline impossible. That's why I genuinely believe reviewing just one of your best of threes with a Codex journal here is worth more than even playing another match, maybe even up to like 5 more best of threes afterwards. So if you're serious about getting better, grab one now at codexjournals.com and use code TOG10 for 10% off. So starting off, I'm just going to go left to right unless I feel like changing, which I probably will. But first one's Kai'Sa. Oh, where do you even start with this broken piece of shit? Where do you even start? So pretty much, I have a couple things that I judge decks on. So first one is like, is your legend strong? Which it is. I want to lap back to why her legend ability is low-key super overlooked on how strong it is, but we'll come back to that, like I said. Is your champion zone option good? Which Kai'Sa probably has the best for the first one, the best for the second one. Does your deck do something inherently powerful? Which, yes, it does. Does your deck score well? Absolutely, she does. Are you able to stop your opponent from scoring consistently? Yes, she does that as well. And also, how do you close out your games once you get to 6 points? 6 points is an important break point within this game for people who don't know that. The reason why I'll go in depth once I do a whole loop here. But yeah, she also has that as well. So pretty much every axis that you could, or axes that you could judge a deck on, Kai'Sa just passes all of it with flying colors, and sometimes is also the best in those categories. Yeah, to lap back on why her hero ability is so strong. So when I first came to the game, I thought her hero ability was good. She gets to essentially keep a rune instead of recycling it whenever she casts one of these spells. But what I always do whenever I check other TCG games is I like to check, how did the developers design their game, right? Like, what's the thought process behind a lot of their spells, and try to find the patterns. Like, usually a mana cost can equal to a certain amount of things on a card, right? And it is true for this game, except for when they put power on a spell, specifically a spell. When they put power on a unit, it's still pretty consistent, everything, the points of value that you'll get for a card. But once you get to the spells without power, yep, they all follow a pretty strict rule. I'll probably have to make another video on this. But as soon as there's a power cost on the spell, I swear they just throw the rule book out and just put whatever the fuck they want on the card, and it's real. It's not a good design. So, essentially what I'm saying is Kai'Sa kind of gets 2 or like 3 hero abilities in one, because when she casts her spells, she doesn't have to recycle a rune. That's good enough to be an ability on its own. But now all her spells in her deck that she can run are just way more overtuned than your opponent's counterpart. So say I have my cards like Void Seeker and whatever. These cards are way better than any 3-cost spell that most other decks can run, that they probably can't run these power costed spells because that's an actual downside. So really, she gets free ramp from her ability. She gets better spells than anyone else. She has the best champ zone option. She has her whole hand's really fast. She has access to burn, which I feel like the burn spells in this game are really OP as well. I don't know if I want to dive deep into that right now, but yeah, I think you get the point. So I definitely think Kai'Sa is S tier, but let's keep some suspense. I don't think she's the best deck in the format, but to end it off, Kai'Sa is just going to be a bit of a gatekeeper on this entire game, or at least for set 1. She's a bit of a gatekeeper. a lot of these decks that you're going to see at the lower half of this tier list, they're mainly just going to be there because they can't really beat Kai'Sa, and she already has such a high play rate, and it's deserved because she's such a powerful deck. But on top of that, having bad matchups and 2 top decks, they also are lacking on these categories that I score decks on, right? So yeah, that was a long ramble. Kai'Sa, very good, but not best deck. Haha, not best deck. I'll tell you, there's one deck above her, okay? Some suspense for you guys. Volibear. Oh, it's Volibear that's better. Nah, Volibear. Okay, well, whatever that was. So Volibear, I think Volibear is going to be in B tier. To elaborate on why I think Volibear isn't, I mean, he could technically go into A, but I'm going to leave him in B. But why I'm going to leave him here? Riftbound is just a super fast game. Anybody that tells you it's not, I don't think they're playing optimally. And I think most top players at the moment right now understand this, know this, and I think they're also abusing it. Because I know like shit, I'm abusing the shit out of it. And the game is fast mainly because of the point system within this game, right? So how you win is you get 8 points by capping and holding battlefields. As soon as you get the 8 points, you win, blah, blah, blah. Really, what do the top players know that you may not know? Yeah, the game's over at 6 points, not 8 points. First person to get the 6 points, it's probably donezo. Why that is because a lot of win cons open up for the player that hits 6 points first. And now the defending player has to defend 3 different win cons all at once, which I genuinely believe it's like a 96% chance to fail. Like, because there's 3 different win cons and you have to cover so much, like if you cover one of these holes or win cons that the attacking player has, that's on 6 points, they can just go to one of the different win cons, and that's usually the weakness of you covering up the other one, if that makes sense. Hopefully you followed. So why did I explain all that? Well, Volibear is inherently going to be a slow deck because you want to build your deck with a lot of really big dudes with 5 might, blah, 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 all of this, in order to be able to ramp yourself, get your resources, and then start casting really big spells. The problem is he's really only casting 1 spell at a time, if he's even casting a spell in the early turns. So really on the early turns, your opponent can just score 2 points because they'll play a 2-drop, score a point, you're not going to do anything, so they score a hold point while they've developed something in the back from the previous turn, score their 3rd point. Like, the game gets out of hand really, really, really fast. So you need to be able to, be doing things in the early game. And Volibear just lacks a lot of that if you actually want to build him like to his strength or like perceived strength, which is his ramp. But on top of that, his ramp is just worse than Kai'Sa's because of the reasons I explained before, right? So reducing the power cost on these spells means that you get to run like much powerful cards comparatively, but like you can kind of do it with Volibear. You can run these creatures with power costs, but the units with power costs compared to units without power costs is still balanced. There's still like a reasonable valuing system that you can see the devs used to balance each card, each unit, I should say. So your ramp is so much worse than Kai'Sa's ramp, and then you're also just going to be super far behind, and falling behind in this game is just doomed. I'm going to tell you that. So that's why I don't like it. You do have access to this card called Aurora, Dazzling Aurora. That is the clock on the game, and it's why the game has to be fast on top of the point system, is because they're like, if you build a slow deck and it doesn't have Aurora, you're always going to lose to Aurora, and that's what Volibear runs. So yeah, I think Volibear has a lot of problems when it comes to speed, but that doesn't take away that you can do some pretty powerful things. MF's amazing. I like the Megan list that has Darius and stuff as well. Challenge, if you're able to do all these proactive things and actually stunt your opponent's ability to score a bunch, and your opponent can't answer your creatures, which most of the time people can, yeah, then you're having a good time. But yeah, that's why I'm going to leave him in B for now. Okay, next up is Jinx. So Jinx is a pretty funny one. I'm just going to put her right here because I think she is a C tier. So Jinx is a very funny one. When you come to this game from any other TCG, Jinx's ability reads like it's fucking insane. Reads like, what the fuck? You just have card draw in your hero ability? but there's a lot of things going on, okay? So I do think card draw in this game is inherently weaker compared to any other TCG, first off. Second off, it's actually too slow. That's how fast Riftbound is, bro. You can probably get your ability turned on by turn 3, which is like 8 cards, and so you'd have to dump everything somehow. You can probably do it. And then you draw 1 card by your 4th turn. But by your 4th turn, right, these other heroes, especially the ones that you're going to see at the top, have already extracted so much more value out of their hero ability. I should stop saying hero ability, legend ability, that like this 1 card draw literally doesn't matter. Like Kai'Sa's going to be up 4 runes by turn 4. Like Darius is going to already have spent 4 extra mana and have that present on the board that you have to deal with while you draw your first card turn 4. Like all these other ones, I don't want to leak where I'm going to be putting these other ones and talk about their hero abilities. But yeah, so like it's so weird to me. She's kind of a hero with a dog shit hero ability. She has a decent shell of like an aggro deck, but first off, it just loses to Kai'Sa because like Kai'Sa would just end up trading burn spells for each of your creatures, and then it becomes too hard to actually score. Like while she's burning your creatures, she's just scoring at the same time. I don't even think you can just beat Volibear. Like you have a hard time into really big creatures, specifically 6 might or more, because Rocket is normally your way of dealing with creatures. And yeah, like I was saying, the card draw is just pretty weak. I think you have to draw like 3 or 4 cards from the Jinx ability to start being even with other legend abilities. So it's, yeah, I think you're an aggro deck, you struggle to score. Kai'Sa's a terrible matchup. But I say you struggle to score because a lot of the times you're going to score and then you're going to just lose your unit. So like that's a really big problem I keep having with the deck. You do have access to some pretty powerful things. You have Vi plus Ride the Wind, which is, like I was saying, the game ends at 6. That is a combo that just says the game ends at 6. Like if you get the 6 points first and you have Vi Ride the Wind, there's not many decks that can stop that, not many cards in the game that can stop that. So that is one thing that is really looking good for Jinx. But I will say, okay, like I said, I was going to be skipping if it made sense. If you want to play a Vi Ride the Wind combo, like you just do it in Annie. And I actually do think Annie's probably like A tier. Yeah, she's not A plus. Oh, is she A? She could even be B. There's a chance Annie's like B, but I'm gonna leave her A here and we'll talk about her and then we'll reassess. So these two are just the same color combination, right? So technically you can play this entire Jinx deck within the Annie shell or within the Annie legend. So you'd want to think about the differences. Well, the difference is Annie by turn 3 or 4, by turn 4, once Jinx has 1 extra card, Annie has just untapped 6 different runes and is probably able to cast spells with those runes as well. Like that's how the deck's built. So you just like play small units early, take points, make it annoying and borderline impossible for your opponent to take a point or contest you on the point. That way it actually covers up the weakness of Jinx, where Jinx would attack with like a 2/2 on the field after going first, and then the opponent would trade over with a 3/3 or whatever. Whereas Annie goes with a 2/2, untaps 2 runes at the end. If the opponent tries to trade over with a 3/3, you have interaction with your 2 floating. And this playpan is super annoying. It's super annoying because Annie also has that threat of Vi Ride the Wind. So it's just how this point system works, man. If that 2-drop on turn 1 scores 2 points, you only need to score 4 more points. And we talked about how easy it is to score 4 points. Just cap 2. If you're able to hold both, you're at 6. GG, Vi Ride the Wind. So yeah, the hero ability instantly covers up the weakness that Jinx has. It is just strictly better. People say, well, Jinx's chosen champion is better, but I think Annie's chosen champion's really strong. I think it's super flexible because this purple Annie, it allows you to actually bring back any type of interaction you want. A lot of the times it also lets you just play your Ride the Wind for value, which is, bro, this card's fucking broken, by the way, this Ride the Wind card. Just being able to scam points on your opponent's turn or like interrupt your opponent trying to score 3 points. I need to start rambling. But just being able to use that for value, get points while you're doing it, and then all of a sudden just go, Annie, buy back your Ride the Wind, or buy back your Gust for some interaction, or Annie, buy back, I don't know, whatever the fuck you want, Cleaves, whatever. While developing, and you know you're going to be able to cast these spells because you're going to untap 2 at the end of your turn, Like, I don't know. I feel like Annie's chosen champion is just so strong. It also does a really cool thing where if you force Annie into a grind game, which is how you beat them, if you're able to slow them down, they can actually just play for value Annies where they go Annie, get back, stack deck. They're going to always be able to cast it even on 4 runes, whether it's on their turn or on their opponent's turn. Cast stack deck, and now all of a sudden they've played a chosen champion and they're able to dig and look for cards that they need to start winning from that position. I think Annie's really strong. Like, I think she's super strong, but there's going to be this big thing I'm going to point out, yeah? I don't think it can beat Kai'Sa. Yeah, I don't think it can beat Kai'Sa is the problem. Because I'm homies with Sold. I'm pretty sure most people, experienced players, understand or like know Sold as the Annie guy. I practice with him like every single day, so I'm well aware of the Annie pros and cons, and that Kai'Sa matchup looks cursed every time I watch him play it. So yeah, maybe she does deserve to be B. And honestly, B is playable. Like I would be fine taking a B tier champ to a tournament, I think. Well, currently. Maybe after this video I wouldn't. But yeah, I think you can still take B to competitions. I just don't think you're going to win with them. But yeah, so that's my big rant on what started as Jinx turned into Annie. So this is this. And then we got Darius. So I'm going to mainly be talking about Hook Darius. I have a little bit of experience with it. I'm friends with Nick Danger, the first guy to top with the Hook Darius list. And so yeah, I've got some pretty good insights on it. I think it's probably going to be like A tier. I think there's one hero going into this A+, more suspense building. That's what I was thinking about. Is he going to be A+ or is it going to be A? And I'll slap him in A because he's not going to be lower than A. And we'll talk about it and then I'll see where I want to put him. But yeah, Hook Darius. Can't quite tell you exactly why it's super strong, but it really is. I think the main reason is actually his Legend ability, which is going to be Legion. You can tap him, gain 1 resource. So it fits what you need in the game of Riftbound, where it is a very fast ability. It's also really nice for going second, for example. So going second, if you have 2/2 drops, you can actually play it on 3 mana. And going first, if you have a card like Seal or whatever, you can actually play 3 drops that create 2 bodies as well. And so that's going to play into that point system thing that I was talking about once again, right? So we're starting to see the patterns, like what makes a strong deck, whatever. But like I was saying, so going first, if you're Darius, you can just go Seal into Vanguard Captain, which makes 3 bodies, right? And that's going first. And then what that does is it lets you go cap on your turn 2, score 2 points, and your opponent has to break both, otherwise you go into 4. If they can only break 1, you're going to go to 3, but now you can contest for the 4th point as well. Game's halfway done on turn 2, by the way. Game's halfway done. Oh, bro, I don't think people understand how ridiculous this is. This is like almost Yu-Gi-Oh lengths of games, but I digress. Is that how I use that, by the way? I never say that. I digress. I'm going to start saying that more. Put on my fucking monocle. But yeah, so Darius is just fitting the description of being a fast deck, right? On top of that, he also scores really well. And what I mean by that is like on all those points about Jinx, how you have to score, but you're normally getting traded over. What Baited Hook does is it actually avoids that getting traded over part by just sacking your unit and turning it into something bigger. But more notably, it turns it into the unit in base. If you want to put it in base, you actually get to choose where you're going to put it. But that's actually a really big deal, because being able to turn a unit that was not long for this world anyway into a much bigger unit, your opponent still needs to catch up on points. They can't just let you get fully ahead, right? And so now they need to start touching the points while they're on the back foot or whatever, while they're behind you at points. Once they go onto it, well, now you have that unit in base that can probably trade over them. So you kind of eliminate the counterplay, or like the fair way to play the game, the fair counterplay from your opponent, which is such an underrated thing about Hook. On top of that, I just feel like most of Darius's hands, they're fast. And like what I mean by they're fast, well, I play a lot of slow decks. I play like Sett. Yi is slower than Sett and Leona. But what I mean by that is you normally have to develop to your base and then you get to attack on the next turn. Whereas like decks like Darius and Kai'Sa, and somewhat Annie, they can, a lot of their hands, they're able to just like be played to base, but with like accelerate, and they have immediate impact on the board state, do a bunch of things. And when your hands are able to do that in this game, it's exactly what you need, because it's a fast game. You need to play around a lot of things as the opposing player, and it's real hard to play around every single thing, right? So like playing Darius on 5 mana into cleave, untap the Darius, becomes a 10, and now you can just break whatever. Vayne is just a 4 mana 5 might, like that's attacking, which is kind of ridiculous. I think that card's super underrated. Also, by the way, I need to talk about Falling Star. This card is just like the most ridiculous card in the game right now, and I think it does need a ban. Just being 2 mana, being able to kill pretty much anything in the early game, or 2 things, is kind of ridiculous to do. It's just such a ridiculous playline that you're able to do on turn 2, because if you do 2 for 1 your opponent, on top of that, develop, your opponent is just too far behind, because again, it's just playing into the point system. So like say you did that on the play, right? You go 2-drop, score your point, and then like your opponent put one thing in the base, you just Falling Star it, develop another thing in base, they can't contest that thing on the field, you get the whole point, you're at 2 points, you score with the other one, pull that other unit back, you're at 3 points, now you're just defending for that 4th point, plus you can develop, your opponent finally gets a turn. Alright, this Falling Star card is not balanced, bro. If you just delete the Falling Star out of there, then like the game's actually playable for people going second. I think there's a couple cards like that as well. I think another one is Charm, and we're going to be talking about these fucking Charm abusers because it's the same shit. But yeah, I have to talk about that because Darius has it, Kai'Sa has it. Well, Falling Star is one of the big reasons that Kai'Sa is so strong as well, and like his gatekeeping decks. Yeah, I think I just have to put that out there. I don't even know how accurate that is with Darius. But also, I will say, there's a good chance Darius will end up in A+, because I think his matchup spread into the top decks is actually really good. So yeah, I'm going to leave him A+. Yeah, let's go A+. But yeah, next one, after I've stopped rambling. So next one's going to be Ahri. I don't think Ahri's A. I'll say Ahri's B. So I think Ahri is B. Why do I think Ahri's B? So I think Ahri is super strong, borderline fucking broken when she's going first. But I think this deck is so shit going second, man. Like I actually think it's pretty unbearably bad going second. A lot of the times as well, how I was just finished rambling about Falling Star, I think Falling Star just deletes this Ahri deck from planet Earth. Being able to kill both the Chosen Champion, the blue Ahri, along with like a Raven Bloom or something else. Like if they don't have any buff spells or whatever, it's a really big blowout. Even if you just Falling Star just the Ahri when they try to develop it on base, massive blowout as well, because you're also taking the power cost away from Ahri. So like they had to recycle a rune for nothing pretty much. Yeah, pretty much anytime I verse a skilled Ahri player, no matter what deck I'm on, I'm pretty sure they never win going second because they just don't have the tools. Like I was talking about the fast and slow decks, right, from their hands. I think Ahri has very, very slow hands. Like her fast hands needs to have a unit already on the board, or it needs to be like Sprite Mother, or it needs to be like end game scenarios where she has Watcher. But like all of these are super niche when they're actually relevant and all that. Yeah, besides that, if you do get put behind, it's super hard for you to get back on the board in a meaningful way instead of just developing, which I think is a big flaw. I also just generally think holding strategies are weaker in this game as opposed to being able to attack and interact. The reason for that is because if you need to hold, you kind of need to bunker down on a single battlefield, which is actually going to slow the game down, which gives your opponent more time to build up a base or whatever to be able to break you. And there's a weird thing about this game. When you get into these scenarios where you're fully bunkering down on one battlefield, you're locked. Because if you start building and your opponent starts building their base more than you, if you retreat from the battlefield ever, like because, oh shit, no, he's going to break me, I need to pull back. Since your opponent was on the other battlefield and now that you've pulled back, they can touch that battlefield and they're up in points now, even if they were going second. So it's really all in. I don't, the bunkering down strat, it's pretty tough. She can do it because of her hero ability, and because, honestly, it's because of Blitzcrank. Blitzcrank's like super annoying. It's like a mega charm, and I was just talking about how I hate charm and I hate falling star. It's just like this base removal shit. God damn it. And then it's also like a 5 tank that, yeah, makes it like almost impossible to actually break. So yeah, I think Ahri going first, really strong. I think she has a couple good matchups. Potentially she can be top of B, because she does have some good matchups in the top decks that I'm going to be placing up there, but also she's got some really bad ones, namely Kai'Sa, which is just going to be a big part of the meta. Tell me if I'm wrong about Ahri, by the way. So Ahri is probably like my least explored hero besides like Lux maybe. So yeah, tell me if I'm completely off with that, but that's where I think it's at, just from versing pretty skilled Ahri players at tournaments and stuff. Feels like they're God when they're going first, but I don't think they can win going second kind of things. But next, let's go on to the next. Next one's Lee Sin. Yeah, there's no way Lee Sin's on their level. So Lee Sin is pretty funny. He might be worse than Jinx. No, he's better than Jinx. So Lee Sin's pretty funny. And I was comparing, like, I like putting him here next to Jinx because it's the exact same fucking thing, right? Like, you could play Lee Sin for these colors, or you could just play Master Yi. So let's talk about Lee Sin first. Lee Sin, you can pay 1, buff a unit. The main times that this is going to come up and be really powerful for you is going second. So I think there's a really nice thing where you can build your deck to go first, and whenever you go second, you always have a use for the extra mana that you're going to have to be able to just buff your units and make them slightly bigger. I also think his color combination is pretty good. Orange is a really strong color. Green is a nice color to give you like support tools like Defy and buff spells. Buff spells are really good. I should quickly expand on why. So buff spells are really good because the game is super fast. So a single blowout, a single big turn of like 2 buff spells to your opponent's 1 buff spell, and they had to walk into it. That's a way to just win the game. So like a lot of the times games are over on turn 2, or like the player going second, their second turn, games are over. Like a lot of the times just because of a blowout from buff spells. And so green has the best buff spells, I'm trying to think. Yeah, the best buff spells, but probably not even the best spells. Like blue's got Stupefy, Smokescreen. I guess that's it. So red has Burn. Okay, but I'm rambling again. Yeah, you get nice buff spells. You get pretty good units in Snapvine and stuff with your orange color. You also get like Pit Rookie and stuff. So nice small ones, Pit Rookie. You get the green Poro. Lots of cool little units, right? You're able to build your deck going first, which it benefits if you're put second because you just use the extra mana to put buffs. So you're always efficient, but you're just too fair of a deck, right? Like every ranking that you can put it on, your legend ability is just weaker than others. Your champion zone, I don't even know which one's optimal. It has to be the orange because accelerate's really good from champion zone, always having the option to just like throw a 6 at the opponent, but it's so expensive, right? 7 mana for an accelerated 6 that any good opponent isn't going to get got by that. Like they will be like, okay, he can do that next turn if he has 7 mana. Let me not take this line that loses on the spot to it because I know he can do it. And then you just inherently have a lot of the problems that like Jinx and stuff have, right? So you can play your 2-drop, sure. You can go score when you're going first, but aren't you just going to get traded over? Sure, you can put a buff on it, whatever, and then have 3 mana to develop a 3-might unit or whatever. Okay, cool. My opponent untaps, they have 5 mana and a 2-drop. They probably got some buff spells or anything to be able to interact, run over your unit, trade over, and then they can start developing or hold up their mana. Like there's a big problem with scoring I found when it comes to Lee. And you're gonna see it's pretty common for a lot of decks. Pretty common, like the way that they score their first 6 points, remember, not 8. Their first 6 points is just like way worse than a lot of the top decks. And it's gonna be a real major thing that I'm gonna point out. But yeah, overall, Lee's just like too fair of a deck, honestly. The more I think about it, like he's probably here. Honestly, Lee might go into Guarantee. But yeah, he's too fair of a deck. His ability's worse than others. His champ zone's worse than others. He struggles to score his first 6 points. He doesn't do anything broken. Like, he doesn't have a singular card that's just like, oh, if he plays this, it's like super broken. Like, there's always answers to all his things. And there's also just a better option in his colors if you want to do it. So I guess we might as well skip over and talk about Yi. So, Yi, same color combination. It's going to follow the trend of the color combination from Proving Grounds is going to go above the other hero, except I think Yi's the best deck. This is just my opinion. So why do I think Yi's the best deck? Where do I even start? It's once again like the Kaiser, where do I even start? I think his legend ability is broken, borderline the most broken in the game, like alongside Kaiser's and maybe even Sett's. Really, if you calculate by the end of the game, how much might do you get from it? Not only from the combat where you get your +2s, but also just the threat of it and how it affects your opponent's decisions to not be able to break a board because of the threat of just +2 might. They can't swing into it. You probably get like 20 might for free. Like, unironically, you gain like 20 might for absolutely no investment. And what that does, since it's a defending trigger, is it kind of just stops being able to play fair Riftbound, right? Like, you can't just play okay, my opponent's going to score with their 2-drop. I'm going to run it over with my slightly bigger unit, get a favorable trade. I'm in a vulnerable spot so they can trade over as well, blah, blah, blah. It just breaks it on turn 1. It breaks it on turn 1 because his 2-drops, like, now you need a 5-drop. The opponent needs a 5-drop to be able to get a favorable trade over it, and that's if Yi has nothing. So that's if Yi has nothing on top of the 2-drop. You need a 5-drop to run over it, and there's no 5-drops that just come in with haste and walk over it, like at that big of a number on turn 2, right? So it already breaks that, and it's abusing this point system that I keep bringing up and why it's so important. It just plays into the point system of the game, right? If I can score with my unit, I go to 1 point, and you can't break it, I got 2, that's a quarter of the game done. That's a quarter of the game done, and they've just untapped for their 2nd turn or whatever, untapped for their 3rd turn or whatever. So legend ability breaks fair Riftbound being played. All your things are super overstated and you just have 20 free might in a game, right? On top of that, like I was saying with Lee Sin, you have access to all these buff spells. So like I was saying, your 2-drop needs to be ran over by a 5-drop from your opponent. But not even a 5-drop runs over it if you just hold up 1 mana or 2 mana for your On Guards or Disciplines. Because now it's like a 7, now your shit's a 7-drop. But your opponent needs to clear it because it's already scored 2 points. Like, it's already scored 2 points. Your opponent really needs to, like, clear it. Otherwise, you're going to just get too much of a point lead. If you went to the other battlefield, whatever they have in the back, plus their buff spells are going to run over that as well. And if Yi ever gets both battlefields and you can't break them both back, or at least one of them back, you're just going to lose on the spot. So all the buff spells are super, super strong in Yi because, unlike Lee Sin, you don't have to use them on defense. You can mainly use them on offense and just let your passive or your legend ability be the reason that you hold. Because yeah, so even if your opponent does correctly play around every single buff spell that they can and it's effective, well, Yi just doesn't have to play that buff spell now, and they'll just save it to run back over, and then he just asks you the same question once again. But you've already got your 2 points out of that unit, maybe more, and now you've just made a favorable trade over them. So you still get to play this fair Riftbound game, but you just stop your opponent from playing it. Like, I don't know. Your opponent's just forced to use more resources than you because of this fucking legend ability, bro. It's so obnoxious, bro. It's so obnoxious. If you can't fight on a different axes like Kaiser or something, then it's really hard to play. Or if you can't just set up a really big mega hold of like 10 might on turn 2, which Ahri can. I think sometimes, which Ahri can and stuff, there's some decks that's able to do that. I know Darius and stuff can set up like really big holds as well, with especially with Trifarian Warcamp and stuff. Like, you can do these, but these are very uncommon situations. They're not really replicable within your games. And all of them do just play into like Primal Strength or like being able to get chipped away slowly with like Snapvine, kill a thing, go score the other side. You still need to keep stacking because Snapvine's going to threaten that, blah, 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 blah. Like, honestly, it just feels like there's not much in terms of like good ways that decks can deal with Yi, if you can at all, right? I think Yi also has this thing that I was bringing up, like when I was talking about Ahri, right? Is I feel like a good Yi is probably impossible to beat as well when they get to go first and they have Grove or whatever. Because, yeah, except you have that upside, but you don't have the downside that Ahri had, that I was talking about. How I think Ahri really sucks going second. I really didn't like having to play Ahri going second. But Yi doesn't suck going second because you get access to cards like Snapvine, First Mate, your chosen champion's really good to go second because the Accelerate, White Flame, so you're able to just bust over whatever that your opponent tries to set up a hold on. You get some favorable trades like that. Your opponent will have a little bit of development over you, but that extra development often is just stunted by your legend ability once again. And even if it's not, well, you've got the pump spells to hopefully hold that as well. So yeah, and all in all, I just feel like there isn't many draws that you can do in Riftbound, let alone decks. Like, there's not many draws even the best decks can draw into that keep up with the raw amount of numbers that Yi can put up at his speed, right? Yeah, I don't know. I think Yi's just fucking not very balanced. So yeah, I'm going to leave him there. There's still a potential. I think, is Kai'Sa better? Kai'Sa is a much bigger gatekeeper, right? On a lot of these other decks. Whereas, like, I think Yi is just overall a much stronger deck, but the gatekeeping factor that, like, so many decks, you probably just can't take them to a tournament and expect a win. Like, you can expect the top with like B tier and below. No, I wouldn't even say C tier. I think you can top with B tier. I think you can win with A and upwards. A lot of the decks down here kind of get stunted by Kai'Sa, or they have a really good matchup into Kai'Sa, but then they get stunted by everything else. So yeah, I'm going to put Yi here. Once I start putting other things here, we'll line it up. We'll see how we end up. And so next up is Yasuo. So my assessment of Yasuo is going to be based on the aggro Yasuo list. So shout out to Gale for that. He's got a really nice list that I did enjoy getting some games against. And he took a Sett off me when I was playing Sett. He took a best of 3 off of me. And that's when I was like, okay, there's definitely something here. Also versed another aggro Yas like early into one of the tournaments. I can't remember who it was, but versed another one, and they were doing some pretty crazy things. So I think the main things to shout out is Ride the Wind. Like, he's a really big Ride the Wind abuser. Green Yasuo is just a very strong card. If it doesn't get tampered with or like fucked around with, right? If you do get to untap with Green Yas, the game is instantly hard for the opponent. So that's a really big factor. You get access to all the buff spells, which is nice for that blowout factor that I was talking about. One blowout on like turn 3, turn 4 usually is just game at that point. Turn 3, turn 4 blowouts. So you get access to that with green. You get Ride the Wind, which also does that. Able to blow out when your opponent tries to cap a different point. You just go and attack there on their turn, score a point. Now your opponent has to break that as well, or you get a hold point. So that's very good. Green Yas, really strong option. I think you score points pretty well in the fact that you don't have to lose your trade. You can just like 2-drop turn 2. You can score with a 2-drop, play a second 2-drop, score the second point if you want, if that's reasonable. Usually you do that on Targons. Or you can just pull back that unit, play another 2-drop. So you don't have to just get traded over for free. I think there's a lot of trickiness when it comes to Yas, and I think a lot of players will just get blown out. But after saying all that, I do think a big thing about Yas is that it is just a skill check on Yas's opponent, right? How well are they able to analyze and predict and play around the potential spells that you're going to be doing, right? Because you're a green-purple deck. I know that was a big reason that I was able to take games off of him as my Sett, because always just playing around Ride the Wind, making sure you don't get fully blown out by that, understanding the breakpoints on how much mana they have up to how much buffs they can get with On Guard Discipline, whatever. Being able to do that will make the games much easier, but I'm not saying that it is an easy thing to do, right? And sometimes you can't. Sometimes you do have to just play into everything. But yeah, I think aggro Yas, probably shouldn't be on the same tier as Ahri and Annie, but I do think Yas is better than Jinx and Lee, so probably needs to be another tier here in the middle, I think. Because, now that I'm thinking about it, are these just guarantee, by the way? These might just be guarantee. Yeah, I'm going to leave them in guarantee right now, because Yas is better than them, I think, in my humble opinion. But your matchup spread, I don't know how good it is. I'm not the biggest knower of his matchup spread. I feel like the Sett matchup's pretty even. Yi probably isn't that good. But green Yas seems pretty hard for them to deal with, so there's a good chance it's actually kind of good. Maybe it's even. Kai'Sa, this doesn't sound good to me. Falling Star, just kill your back row, or like anything kill all your back row, and you need to still walk over their things, they score fast. Red Kai'Sa to get a favorable trade. Yeah, it doesn't sound that good, does it? Hook Darius, no clue. I'm going to leave aggro Yas in C tier, slightly above these. Okay, there's going to be a lot of heroes in the Garen tier. So next, it's Leo. I've got quite a decent amount of Leo reps, so I feel like I have a pretty good way to run it down, but we can just go through the ways that I score decks anyway. So like her legend ability, it's pretty weak, but a key thing on there is she's a deck built around stunning, and I do think stun is a strong keyword. I don't know, I think she's definitely not guaranteed. I think she's better than these heroes. She's probably equal with Yas. She's probably below these, which makes sense to me. But yeah, I think her legend ability is pretty weak, but playing around stun, the keyword, is the benefit. I think that keyword is quite strong, actually. Your chosen champion, I just play one yellow Leo in my champ zone. I think being able to develop that unit on turn 2 is one of the big benefits of playing Leo. Always guaranteed. I think the green Leo is a little bit of a bait. So your chosen champion, not too bad, but it's bad in a lot of matchups, but it's also really, really strong in a lot of matchups as well. So it's weird. How does she score? I think she's what I like to call a touch and interact type scorer. As in, she's going to touch a base early, and then you want to hold up runes to be able to interact with your opponent, because she does have access to really strong interaction with, namely, all of the pump spells, discipline, on guard, all of that. But she also gets the yellow one, which is Call to Glory, which she can use because of her stuns and her hero ability, being able to buff. I think Call to Glory is really broken. And then she also gets cards like Zenith Blade, which I also think is a very, very strong card. Just in the game in general, it's probably like a top 5 strongest cards in the game. And of course, her stun cards like Rune Prison. So it's really hard for your opponent to be able to actually break your base if you just hold up 2 to 3 mana. So that's why I like to call her like a touch and interact type of scorer. But yeah, so it's really strong if your opponent does play into the open mana. But the problem is, if your opponent doesn't play into it, they just go to the other battlefield and start developing whatever. We held up 2 mana, we didn't develop, and we didn't get use case that turn out of it, besides threatening them. Depending on what we developed while holding up that mana, we can already start to fall behind, right? It starts playing into, I think I was talking about it with Ahri, when you're stacking up one battlefield. If you ever retreat, your opponent just gets ahead of you, so it's starting to play into a weakness already. It's a fine way to play the game, how to score during the game, but yeah, like I was saying, there's a really big flaw there, big weakness. How do you stop your opponent from scoring? It's like what I was saying. So you develop on, touch on the base, hold up interaction. But if your opponent ignores it and you're just building your base, like all these top decks, they just have ways to not make this fair, right? Your base is never just going to kill your opponent's battlefield for free. There's always going to be some hoops that you have to jump through in all of this. Yeah, I don't think Leo's way of stopping your opponent from scoring is very good. Unless you draw Zenith Blade, then it's very good. I think Zenith Blade is a really great way at stopping your opponents from scoring, but you've only got 3 copies in your deck. To explain why as well, by the way, Zenith Blade is a stun, but it's also a Ride the Wind, and I was talking up Ride the Wind with Ride the Wind Vi and also Ride the Wind Yasuo and stuff. Just being able to do it on your opponent's turn to attack their battlefield, so you score on your opponent's turn. The stun makes it so it's just going to be a straight up, like, I kill your creature, I don't care. Kill your unit, and now your opponent has to deal with that side and possibly the other side as well if you had multiple units at one battlefield or whatever. So yeah, that's good. But also on top of that, that's like your only fast card in the deck. Yeah, I don't think there's any accelerate besides Green Leo at 5 points, but like, this card's just so fake. It's so expensive and so conditional. You barely have it when you need it, and it won't do anything at those stages of the game if your opponent plays around it. So yeah, you can't really stop your opponent from scoring. Your way of scoring's abusable by your opponent. Your legend ability is pretty weak. Your chosen champion's not too bad. But you also do end games when you do get to 6 points reasonably well. Surprisingly, you can play for the double conk pretty well because of like yellow Leo buffed units throughout the game and your buff spells. So you can play for the double conk, which means your opponent has to split up their might between the two battlefields. If you can't break it, or you don't want to play into like them holding up spells, you just break one, and then you get to play the hold game, which you are good at because of your touch and hold aspects of a deck. But yeah, I just think this deck is a little bit too fair, too slow compared to most of the top decks. And like I was saying with Volibear, if you do just build this deck really, really slow and try to play a weird mid-range control-y list, it's just like, why aren't you just playing Aurora at that point, right? So I do think Optimal Leo is probably like this small little aggro Leo. I do think the list feels good, and you do have a pretty good matchup in the top tier decks, which is nice. Well, there's a couple. I don't want to give away all the sauce though. But yeah, Kaiser's going to be gatekeeping you a little bit. You really have to hope things go your way and they don't draw the good cards, and you draw all the good cards. Otherwise, you shouldn't be winning that almost ever. But all the other top tier decks, I actually think, Leo, like, you have game into all of them. And you're a really strong deck going first. But yeah, I can't put her on the same level as these. All these decks just do or have an unfair aspect in their game, as opposed to these ones, like unfair, and they're like much more solid foundations. But yeah, hopefully that explains that a little bit better. Teemo probably also goes into C, right? Yeah, I wouldn't want to put Teemo here. I do think the blue color in this game is just quite strong in general, but Teemo again has a similar flaw to most other heroes, right? Like these legend abilities, bro. These legend abilities, by like turn 3 or whatever, you gain so much value out of them. And then Teemo's is pretty much nothing. Like his legend ability is it's really nothing, to be honest. If we're going to be brutally honest. Your champion zone also pretty weak. For reference also, I'm going to be talking about the hidden version of Teemo. I know there's a version that's not built around hidden, and I do have that version, but I'm going to need to see it perform well in tournaments. The version I'm talking about is like you can run like a pit crew and much bigger units and just using the 2 ramp cards, Treasure Trove and the backpack. I forgot what they're called. I'll pull them up on the screen though. So doing like a very slow, pretty control-y type of Teemo with that, and then hoping that you can stabilize on your Mind Splitters, maybe a Mundo, whatever other big creatures you got, Rex, Watcher, all of these, just trying to ramp there fast. It's reasonable, that list. I think it's pretty reasonable, but I need to work out the matchup spreads and why you'd actually want to play that over the hidden version. I think the biggest reason would be because Kaiser just absolutely eats the hidden version. It's really hard to play a hidden base deck when, Kaiser can just burn your creatures to force out your hidden flips. So she never has to play into things like that. There's also a problem with the hidden list that you are pretty slow in your hold deck, right? So why are we not just playing a Yi, which is a better hold deck? It's really hard for Teemo, after his hold does get broken, to be able to take it back, right? So take back the thing, because these hold strategy decks, you're just going to see it. It's so common. Like these hold strategy decks, it's so hard to be able to fully hold one battlefield all game, because as soon as you start losing on development and you pull back, your opponent gets to score 2. Like it's just going to be like a broken record at this point. Yi gets around it because he only needs 1 on the field, and it's worth like 2 units. 1 unit's worth +2 on top of it because of his broken ability. But yeah, all these other decks that are trying to hold, once they do get broken, it's a lot harder for them. And like Teemo does have blue, which is like Smokescreen and Sprite Mother, which is nice ways to be able to push back and conquer over some fields, but they're much more expensive and just less reliable than like just 1 mana on guard to be able to run back over if I'm Yi or whatever. I think the biggest aspect with the hidden Teemo is the Nocturne. I think Nocturne's the best card in that deck, and if you do hit your Nocturnes off of blue Teemos, of revealing your 5 or off your stack decks or even off the Candlelits, then the deck is really, really good. So what I averaged it out when I was reviewing games of Teemo and stuff was, if you do flip Nocturne from a blue Teemo, it ends up winning that combat because of the flip, and they always have to kill the blue Teemo because like that's a high priority target during that combat. And if they can't kill the Nocturne, well, the Nocturne has ganking, so you're going to be able to gank over and score the other point, which is massive for these hold decks. And then your opponent's most likely going to get stuck on having to develop again to break that first hold, but now you have a double hold. And so once they have that turn to develop or whatever, if they're not a fast hand deck, like I keep talking about, then they're going to have to just take an off turn, develop to be able to set up for a big push. but all of a sudden you won that combat, so you got the whole point there. Nocturne ganks over, ganks the other one, you get 1 point there. Your opponent develops, and then it's the point system, right? They can pass back to you, and then you untap, you get 2 points. You just got 4 points in that sequence. So hitting Nocturne is like just straight up getting 4 points during the game and +4 might, winning a combat. Like hitting Nocturne is the nuts. It really is like as powerful as what you would imagine. But yeah, if you just don't hit Nocturne off any of your flips or any important flips, like if you don't hit Nocturne during a combat and it doesn't survive, then it's not as good. Like just straight up like that, it's just not as good. Like you can almost say, who cares? Like, nice, you scammed out a 4 might unit, but my Yi ability already got me +4 might by like turn 1. And like, nice, you cheesed out, and you got lucky, cheesed out this Nocturne to your base. Like, I've already made that amount of might. Like, if that's the most powerful thing you can do as a deck, these other decks like are just beating that with just their legend ability, and they don't even have to pay for it or anything. So yeah, I don't think Teemo can go higher than C, in my opinion. But yeah, that's the hidden Teemo. Who knows about the treasure trove one? Next up, we're going to be talking about Viktor. So finally, I can put something in this A tier. Quick rundown of Viktor. So very strong legend ability. Paying 1 mana to make a recruit is much better than like making a buff on a unit, for example, because a whole extra unit allows you to score multiple points at once. And that's a really big boost, especially when going second. So going second, you get 1 extra resource, right? 1 extra rune. So being able to play 2-drop plus a recruit on turn 1 is already a lot of pressure, because you start playing into that point system thing. Once again, we're starting to see the patterns on what makes a deck good or not, right? So being able to score 2 points, now your opponent has to answer both. Otherwise, you go straight to 4 by your turn 3 or whatever. So really strong ability. Chosen champion is not that good, the yellow Viktor. If you're judging it off like the valuing system that I have so far, I really need to make this into a video, so it doesn't sound like I'm just yapping, but you really need to make like 3 recruits for it to be on rate. Or I think 3 recruits is above rate for the chosen champion. So, and that's pretty hard to do. So it's not the best, but it's not the worst. Kind of plays into what you want to do anyway. You score super effectively, right? Viktor used to be a deck where you just touch with your recruits, because you'll start swarming the board like with hella recruits really fast, and it's really hard for your opponent to deal with all of them. So you just touch and let them trade over. You don't care because it was a free resource. But a lot of players started realizing, okay, maybe I should hold, so they can't just touch a base with the recruit for free. So Victors have now adapted. They've started to play bigger units, and they'll use interactive cards like Smokescreen and other blue cards like Sprite Mother and stuff to be able to get favorable trades. That way they can score and even hold favorably like that. And just in general, the recruit tokens, yeah, just super effective, super fast at scoring, which is exactly what you need in this game. I think Viktor has a pretty cool way that he stops you from scoring as well, because he's a super fast deck, super out the gate, make 2 units or whatever, start scoring. You need to start trading with me and keeping up in points. Like, he asks you a lot of questions. And if you ever do fall behind in development and or points, you're just going to get like singularity'd or smoke screened out or falling cometed or hidden bladed or cold, and starts like really messing up your ability to start contesting points as soon as you start falling behind. And then he's just going to run away with the game. So he has a really unique way in how he stops you from scoring. And to finish out, I'm starting to realize, I feel like maybe every deck can actually just close from 6 points. Like, it is just that OP getting the 6 points because of the win cons thing. Because I was going to say, like, Stratagem's probably the best finisher. It's just a 1 card thing. If you have like 3 units, it's 6 mana, 15 might. So yeah, tell me how that's balanced. Stratagem, but I don't even think many Victors are playing that anymore. They just run Watcher, which is a more reliable card. It's a card you can just play proactively, even if it's not to end, and it doesn't cost too many runes, yada, yada, yada. But yeah, I'm starting to think that every deck can just close from 6. So yeah, all around good deck. I think he's pretty fun as well. So yeah, Viktor good, easily A tier. Next up is Misfortune. So it's probably Aurora MF is the one that we should be thinking about. She's either B or she's going to be top of C. We'll put her here and then do the thing where I talk about it. So I believe Aurora MF is the best version. I tried to make the aggro one. Doesn't work. or like you just don't have a reason to do it. But the Aurora MF, you have enough card draw and stuff. I believe it was, last time I checked, 70% chance to draw and play Dazzling Aurora on turn 4, which is good chances, right? That sounds good. But in practice, what that really means is you lose 30% of your games for free. because I really don't think you can win reliably into good players on good decks without Aurora on curve. Like turn 4 is on curve. If you play Aurora turn 3 ahead of curve, then you're heavily favored to win. Heavily favored. Because even in the best case scenario, turn 3, your opponent's probably untapping with like 4 points, and you've already started your train, right? But turn 4 can start to get to 6 points. Like it gets scary. Obviously, that's nuts openers. It's probably like 5 or 6. But turn 5 or no Aurora, I just don't know how this deck wins, to be honest. Like, you're going to play a Mind Splitter, like a 7/7. If your opponent has any answer to it, you have to take it, but you also have to deal with all of these units on the board. You're playing it to base, and then you're attacking on the next turn. So really, it's like a turn 4. You've started playing the game. Yeah, I think it's just too slow if you don't have the Aurora, and one really big unit isn't going to win the game. Otherwise, Volibear would already be the best deck. Maybe I'm just too harsh though, but I do think there's some upsides. In theory, you should have decent matchups into both of the top decks. Well, any top deck that doesn't run Hidden Blade or Sabotage, I guess, because Sabotage your Aurora really sucks for them. Hidden Blade, the first thing you do, go to 6 points, makes it hard for the Aurora deck as well. Those are just examples, but yeah, I'm pretty sure into Kaiser and stuff, you're probably favored. Yeah, if the Yi isn't on Sabotage and they can't deal with the first 2 really big dudes, you're probably favored as well. Yeah, so maybe she should be here at the bottom of B just because your matchups sound actually kind of tolerable there. So yeah, bottom of B. Maybe I'm too harsh. Haven't had the most practice on that one. But next up, Sett, my dog. So Sett, statistically, is one of the best performing decks. I think if anyone's seen the stats, I think he's like 60% win rate over like 300 matchups in tournaments so far. So it's either A+ is the lowest I'd put him, but it's probably going to end up being S, so I'll just leave him here. Yeah, it's probably criminal to just put him below S after saying 60% win rate over 300 matchups, over 300 matches. But yeah, to explain why, I was already talking about how fucked Yi's ability is, right? How much free value or free might you get from the hero ability. But Sett's ability actually contests that number very easily, right? By recalling or like saving any buffed unit that dies. By just recycling a rune, you get to recall that unit instead of it dying. If I put it like this, if you recycle a rune and just save like a random 4/4 unit, for example, random example, that thing, I was explaining with Teemo, that's the most powerful thing you could do in the Teemo deck, right? Flipping a Nocturne, recycle a rune, you get a 4 might unit, and it has like, I guess that one has ganking or whatever. But like, Sett just makes a 4/4 unit or more by recycling a rune like 5 or 6 times in a game, guaranteed. Like, it's just gonna happen. That's his play pattern. So yeah, Sett's really fucking good just from that. The weird thing is that's not even the end of it, because that factor on how instead of your units dying, they just get recalled. So you're recycling 1 rune for like a 4 to 5 might unit 5 times throughout a game. You get like recycle 5, fucking make 30 might. I don't know, random example. But it's better because it also plays into that scoring thing that a lot of decks have a problem with, right? So a lot of decks have this problem with scoring and not just getting traded over for free. But with Sett, a big thing I noticed was, I'm just going to score with my buffed units. Now, if they trade over me, I will save my unit and I have more units in base to trade back over with them. And then you just play that game with them. Like, his play pattern covers up like the biggest, I was about to say the biggest flaw in the game, which it might actually be. Like, just some decks just can't score as effectively as other decks. So yeah, he covers all that with his hero ability. The hero ability has insane numbers, like some that contest even the best ability in the game, which is probably Yi, but by that factor, it probably is Sett. It's just your normal play pattern. It's not very hard to achieve. It's very replicable. Both of your chosen champs in Sett, I think you can play around both and have really solid game plans around them. It'll be for like specific matchups. which that's a whole nother talk on like when to go yellow Sett, when to go orange, but that's a really good factor that both of your sets are playable, especially from the champ zone. Yeah, you just really pass every single measurement you can think of, right, on what makes a deck good. Like, it's the same thing with Yi, it's the same thing with Kai'Sa. You have no real big weakness in like what should make your deck strong. You pass everything with flying colors. Your basic play pattern is something that is the strongest thing that other decks can do. There is a weird thing here though. So when I'm looking at these other two S tier decks, because I play a lot of Sett. Sett's like my guy. People know me as the Sett guy. But it's pretty weird to put him here. So like this becomes like a weird triangle, right? Because I think Sett's pretty weak into Yi. Probably like very, very weak into Yi. Good Yi players at least. And then you should be slightly favored into Kai'Sa. I think it's a bit die roll. If Kai'Sa can win the die roll, then they're like 50-50 on if they can win the whole matchup. But if they don't win the die roll and they have to go second, I'm pretty sure like Sett's super, super heavy favored. So it becomes this weird triangle, right? So like Kai'Sa slightly favored into Yi, and then like 50-50 with Sett, and then Sett pretty favored into Kai'Sa, very unfavored into Yi. Yi obviously favored into Sett, and like 50-50 here. So I do think Sett probably has to go here because like it's not like 50-50s or free wins. He actually has a pretty bad matchup in Yi. Oh, you know, that's starting to make me think maybe I should put him down then, because at least these guys like are pretty even with each other. And I do think the Sett matchup into Yi is pretty bad. Just goes to show how fucking strong this stupid legend is. So it's either like Sett's gonna be S. No, it just doesn't make sense. Yeah, I think this actually looks fine. And I'm biased too. Like I'm the Sett guy, I'm telling you. But this is probably the most realistic way to put it. Is it true though? I guess you can't base it fully off the win rate, right? 60% win rate, like 300 games in the tournaments. Because Kai'Sa has that as well, but like double the games. Kai'Sa has like 59% win rate, but double the games. So it's actually better stats than Sett's. Like being down 1%, but double the games, like 600 games or whatever. Yeah, it probably is just Kai'Sa is going to end up being the best deck. So it's interchangeable. It's like one of these. Kai'Sa might also just be easier to play than Yi, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it's like this. I'm going to put it like this, because fuck you Kai'Sa players. Alright, last ones. Finally at the end. Lux and Garen. Yeah, both of these are guaranteed. How do we put this? Pretty much whatever build you want to build Lux for is just going to be better in Viktor, because it's the same color combination. But yeah, making recruit tokens for piss free, pretty much, to be able to score with is just more value than drawing a card, in my opinion. So yeah, whatever Lux build you have, I'm sorry, just put it in Viktor and it's probably better. Garen, instead of playing Sett, is definitely an option. Nah. Definitely fucking not. Although actually, I do think Hook Garen is a deck that is extremely underexplored. So, because there's some interesting play patterns as well in there, right? Because Confront, so turn 2, going second, you have 5 mana. You can go like Confront into the Vanguard Captain, make 3 dudes plus your turn 1 play, and then you just put 4 on a battlefield, score, draw 2. Sounds good in theory, right? Also, Hook, it's going to do the same thing that it does for Darius. Kinda, not really, because you don't get Draven and Vayne and Darius or Falling Star. Okay, stop dooming. But you can score with your units, right? And then hook them away, turn them into something bigger so you don't just get free traded on. Wait, is Garen just better than these decks, by the way? There's no way, right? It can't be. Maybe Lux is bottom tier, though. Lux is probably worse than Garen when you think about it competitively. I do also think Lux just has a problem with like swarmed boards. Like if she's versing a deck that only goes like make one dude, make one dude, make one dude, make one dude, like Lux will actually box you because she has so much base removal, like 1-for-1 base removal. But yeah, if you don't have that, if you're not a deck like that, which is most decks up here, like all of the good decks, yeah, you're not having a good time. But yeah, Garen thought is interesting. So I guess I know what I'm doing after this. By the way, in the description, I will give links to every single deck, like what I believe is the best build of each, from all of the tournament datas. Like I went through most of them and just checked out what I believe is the best version. So for you guys to go check those out. So shout out to all the players whose decks are in there. Really good players, really good deck builders. Vetted by me, mate. So, yeah. But yeah, hopefully you guys were able to gain something of value by me just yapping about how unbalanced this game is and talking about how broken some of these heroes are. This was fun. But thank you for watching to the end, and I'm outie. Peace.